Hello. Let me get started here. I'm Brian Wright. I wrote this book, well, it's soon to be written. It's called Good Neighbor Libertarian. Well, Good Neighbor Libertarian, what is that? That's a system. And also it's a person. But it's kind of a system and a person, but the basic system, I call it a simple plan for citizen participation and empowerment. So this is kind of for a Michigan pilot project in 2015 from January to June, probably the first half of 2015. I have a few quotes here I think that are apropos. And again, I don't know whether you can see this. I'm doing this at night. This is kind of my first trial run. I just want to make sure that I'm saying it in a nice pace and also that it's coming through reasonably well and that I'm making my points without a lot of tedium. The quotes I think are pertinent. Of course, this is just a minority can really do a lot. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world, by Margaret Mead. Another one that this is from John Haywood, who did all these quotes from the Wayback Machine. Many hands make light work. And that's exactly what I'm intending for this plan of Good Neighbor Libertarian. Then this is a famous quote from Woody Allen. All my plan does is really encourage large numbers of people to participate and do their civic duty at very little cost and for great cause. And so that's kind of my whole idea of Good Neighbor Libertarian. The great cause, of course, being liberty and life, which are linked, of course. But Woody Allen said that 90% of success is showing up. I think he said 80%, but it's probably more like 90%. And the other idea that I want to suggest here, that I really want to convey, is that this is, we're not going to do a Debbie Downer kind of thing. This is going to be a very positive and uplifting and can-do and success-oriented operation, and we're going. You'll see what I mean later. But so I have this thought in my mind from the old Roger Miller song, and so if you just want to sing along, walking in the sunshine, sing a little sunshine song. I mean, put a little smile upon your faces if there's nothing wrong, and so forth. And I'm sure that'll stay with you for the rest of the day. Okay, you're a little more on my system. It's very easy to learn. It's easy to apply. It's going to probably be done with the Libertarian Party of Michigan, the pilot. It's synergistic. Satyagraha means the global truth force. This is what I really wish that the liberty movement needs to embrace, namely the truth movement, and in all its various aspects. And we'll get into more detail on that. This identifies true threats to life and liberty and their source, or sources, and as again, a many hands approach to highly elevate what I call the nows, which is number of warms. We need more warm bodies on all these just causes. We just don't have enough people participating, and there are reasons for that, and we'll talk about it. It integrates with other strong liberty causes, all these other causes I'm talking about, and it produces success. I fully intend this to be a successful operation. What is it in a nutshell? The 1, 2, 3 of Good Neighbor Libertarianism is you pick a threat, an issue. It's usually global and central, but it affects you on a local level and your life and your liberty directly. You commit a small amount of time, and my minimum time is basically 4 hours a month, okay, to do your civic duty. And you show up. Showing up sort of means showing up at City Hall, okay, but City Hall means points of public official bodies. Again, we'll talk about it. The next set of the 4, 5s, and 6s are simply, this is a social movement. We share, we coordinate, and we recruit. So this has success markers, which are really oriented toward the assertion of our freedom. That's basically it. I mean, from from the ground up. In other words, we're going to be pushing back. We're going to be telling or learning how to tell our city hall literally to refuse to cooperate, to apply resolutions that are consistent with the Constitution, with first principles, and so forth, and all up and down the line. Okay, so those are our success markers when we get those resolutions in place, when we convince public officials to do their duty and obey their oaths. What is a good neighbor? I mean, that's pretty clear, but it's usually somebody in your neighborhood who is civil, considerate to you, stays out of your business, yet gladly provides help or accommodation if asked. When a problem crops up, good neighbors are there. They also pitch in on those items dealing with common threats. Like if there's a fire or another emergency, they always show up. A libertarian is basically somebody who believes in the non-aggression principle. He understands the universality of this idea of what you're taught, in kindergarten, what you're taught: don't hit, don't steal, don't lie. That's what libertarianism is. It's nothing more complicated than that. It's simply applied at a social level and to all these, quote unquote, these complex systems that we've developed over the centuries. So what our idea is to combine the two, good neighbor and libertarian. Now I'm going to use Barney. You remember Barney Rubble, Barney Rubble. Great guy, he'd give you the shirt off his back. He's been content, but he's beginning to think, well, maybe there's something wrong in the world. Something wrong in bedrock or outside of bedrock that's going to affect bedrock. Now, what's going on? He sort of has these questions. Now, I listed a lot of things from the real world, but you could take a simple situation like, say, my Aunt June. I remember her talking about the situation down in Waco in 1993, I believe it was, where the federal government went in and basically massacred women and children, and she never thought that could happen in a free society, and so like that's the kind of thing that would bar. And June, she wasn't particularly political. I mean, she didn't, she wasn't on city council. She had never run for office. I think she was in the PTA. But what I'm saying is there are a lot of issues of that nature that bother people, and people like Barney, just regular good people. And they say, why is that happening? Why are we torturing people? Why are we bombing children in foreign countries? Why are we always talking about going to war against countries I've never even heard of? Why do we deploy the police to beat up grandmothers and that type of thing? So we've got like a lot of issues, and Barney's he's a sensitive guy. He thinks about that stuff. And so does Betty. Betty Rubble. He wants to build a community, but okay. And here's our standard: how to build a community. You turn off your TV, you leave your house, you get to know your neighbors, and so on. There's a whole list of pretty obvious things, and I'm sure you can go out there how to build a community, and you can find that on the web, and it's great stuff. But the fact is, we're not in a world where we can get right to it. The fact is, we are in a harsh realm of political terror, really, and so we have to deal with the terror. We have to deal with the central government and its crimes, and the central governments and their crimes. And then on a local level, we have to usually deal with a bunch of insiders and cronies and so forth that more or less perpetuate the central government dictates. It's kind of like, well, I don't want to go into that, okay? But let's just look at it this way. We have to put out these fires. We have like a ship of state that's about to hit the iceberg, or it already has. So there are fires, there are people that are drowning. We have to rescue them, and we have to restore them to health before we can even think about getting into this community stuff. So that's what we need to do, and Barney wants to do that. So does Betty. So my definition of a Barney and a Betty are like they're not like me. I mean, they haven't spent their whole lives reading books and studying and trying to implement a society based on the non-aggression principle. They aren't libertarians, but they're naturally libertarian, and they want to do the right thing by their neighbors. And they sense there's some things that are really wrong, and so, and they're also willing. That's kind of my definition. They're willing to help in concert with others if we can make it simple, we can make it fun, we can make it low commitment, and we can open the door to shed light on the sources of the problems. So that's the concept of effortless power. If we can convey to them an idea that this is effortless, or when I say effortless, I mean stressless. There's always effort, but effort can be, opening a door or, pulling back a curtain. That's effort, and that's the kind of effort I'm talking about, really. It's pulling back the curtain of truth. And so when you do that, you let in the sunshine. Walking in the sunshine. All right, Barney's cloud is part of a bigger cloud, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later. I'm going to actually get into that more in the book, but I'm going to only refer to it here in this presentation. But there's some things that I've studied personally, and in my books, particularly the sacred non-aggression principle, I call it the barrier cloud. And it doesn't have to. Barney doesn't have to be aware. A barrier cloud is basically a sociological impediment to movement along the path for people to move along their natural path of the non-aggression vector. And so, so body, mind, and soul. That's exactly. Okay, so there's a 1, 2, 3. I've talked about it. We'll talk about it in more detail in the book. But that's all we're trying to do. We're trying to get that level of commitment. And that's what I'm saying to, if you were a bunch of Barneys and Bettys, and more audiences are not, they're more like libertarian, they're more like people I'm trying to convince that this is a good strategy and plan to take to the Barneys and Bettys of the world, through my book. But this is kind of like trying to, like, the kind of first principles for Barney. And he'll learn this stuff as time goes on, as we all learn when we realize that the fact that his neighbor is complaining her ears are bleeding because of the new smart meters that the energy company has imposed without her consent, and she can't do anything about it. And he's going to learn that that's part of that type of an assault on that grandmother is something that comes from a bigger coordinated plan of people who are really part of this problem, the barrier cloud people, the men of the power sickness, if you will. So he's gonna figure that out, and we're gonna help him. All right. Next, this is all it is. I mean, we're talking about, you pick a threat from the menu. All right. And I'm going to talk about the threats, and you're going to have a menu, and I'm going to explain that in the book pretty well, so they can just kind of like go along. Well, yeah, smart meters that make my neighbor's ears bleed. I think I'm going to pick that one. I'm going to spend 4 hours a month, and I'm going to go down to City Hall, and I'm going to help the other people that are in the smart meter movement. Okay, and I'm going to stand up, and I'm going to be passionate or not, but I'm going to show up. Okay, I'm going to show up for that, and I'm pick that threat, and I'm going to join with others. You see, that's the high idea. And then you get, by learning all about this threat. Now, the people that want to go beyond 4 hours a month, they can do that. I'm proposing kind of like a plan. If we go back here, I'm saying we want to go with, this is, when you got to go back here, I'm talking about like levels of commitment. Don't feel bad. The minimum commitment's great, but it's like you can do any number. Okay, sunshine is 8 to 12. That's kind of the moderate level of commitment. Star Child is 12 to 20 hours a month. That's not much when you really think about it, depending on who you are and how much time you're willing to put into a cause that will be successful, because we've got many hands making light work, and we're all combining and we're working together. All right, so we open the door, we walk in the sunshine, we dispel the cloud. I already talked about that. Okay, we learn all about the threat. That's part of it. Okay, we're all intelligent beings. Well, a lot of us are intelligent beings. But anyway, it's simple common sense. You can read and write, okay? that means you can climb out of your cage, and nobody can stop you. This is they'll try to stop you, but they can't stop you. You shine your light, you work effortlessly with the others to remove the threat, okay? That's all it is. That's all it is. And we'll have fun doing it. The 4, 5, and 6, this is kind of like a little more complicated. Now, the Barneys and Bettys are going to learn this when they come in. The people that are more into organizations, they're going to have this figured out. This is going to be in the book, and it's also going to be on the website that comes along with the idea, with the Good Neighbor Libertarian. All right, so we share. This would be probably it's going to be on a county level, okay? But it's also going to be we're going to do coordination and motivation at these meetings. It'll be like a sales meeting in a way, but no pressure, no pressure. You show up and you join others that are dealing with the same issue, and then you associate with a public official body. Okay, so a city of Novi, city of Farmington Hills, county of Oakland, county of Livingston, state of Michigan, country of the United States, so forth. Okay, so we have these meetings and we spread the word. We spread Good Neighbor Libertarianism across the country. It's a very cheap booklet, by the way. So what happens is many hands like this that we're talking about, Barneys and Bettys, say, hey, you know what? We better do something because we got some really nasty people coming down the road, with guns and MRAPs and all kinds of stuff, and they look like they want to take us away and put us in jail, and so what are we going to do? Well, one thing we can do, we go down to City Hall, but you go to City Hall now. What's City Hall like? And this is kind of my slide of City Hall. It's like kabuki, that Japanese, very scripted, like a play. You can look it up on the web. And we have all these great noble causes. We've got people that are against what I call the death meters. These are the electromagnetic wireless meters that cause all kinds of biological problems, and they snoop and they pry, and they're intended to control our electric usage, and that's going to be propagated to gas and water. So you're going to be under total control of a central entity, and that's the government, and that's the state, and that's not American, and we're not doing it. Okay, but you go to a city council meeting and bring that up. You're not going to have anybody there to talk to. It's like there's nobody there. They have a few people that get into the beatbox and speak every once in a while, but one reason I call it kabuki play is like it's behind a glass panel. They can hear you, but you can't hear them, or they don't talk to you. That's part of the city charter. So it's like all that stuff is set in motion. They talk about their John Deere tractors and whether they're going to up the or how they're going to process somebody's application for development and so forth. So these are all economic decisions that for some reason are a matter of government. So we're not. What I'm trying to say is here, you get a few people at these things, but hardly anybody for particular cause. And you'll see what I'm saying when I talk about it later. There's tons of causes. All right. The big problem is the lack of warm bodies confronting public officials. And I say confront because they don't experience pressure. They're not going to respond unless you give them some pressure. They hear pressure. They don't hear reason. Okay. And that's a lesson I learned from a young man named Dan Johnson with the people against the NDAA. All right, here's what we turn it into. Instead of that, with the kabuki play where nobody attends, it's like this ending of the movie V for Vendetta, where all these are like Guy Fawkes people. This is where they swarm over the emplacements of all the stormtroopers and who are heavily armed, and they just walk around them. Okay, and this is my idea of like success. We're going to fill the chambers of all public officials, public official bodies, with sunlight, with sunshine, with good neighbor libertarians who know what they're doing and are going to turn this thing around. And we're going to take the country back from the corporate and special interests, and we're going to give it back to the people so they can be living secure in their lives and their liberties. the peaceful enjoyment of their property. That's what we want. They get their jobs back, they get their country back, they get their lives back. All right, so that's it. I mean, summary of the good neighbor libertarianism. We recruit the Barneys and the Bettys. We convince the libertarians. That comes next. We hand everyone the good neighbor libertarian blueprint, and it makes it easier in the details, and it inspires the good neighbor libertarian. And by the way, my abbreviation GNL, I pronounce it genial. So we're going to have genials all over the world. I mean, that's the vision. They're going to be all over the world. They're going to start in your hometown. Okay, now that get to the next part. You know, Barney and Betty, they haven't been studying. They don't watch alternative media. They think everything that's gone on in CNN or MSNBC or Fox or what have you. You know, they think or public radio. They think, wow, that's covering the ballpark. If I want a little bit of change. But if you notice, all those entities in the mainstream media, they basically say the same thing. You know, there may be some differences between Obama or becoming a Democrat and a Republican, but it's the same criminality being covered up and warmed over by the media. And so, like, we're not seeing Barney and Betty. Most people do not see what's really happening, because what is happening is the United States federal government has told all the Barneys and Bettys, and they buy it, basically. They haven't told us. Well, they have told us, you know, but it hasn't gone out. They haven't got it in a medium that they believe it. All right, but this is by alternative media. You know, by policy, it practices torture. It practices blanket surveillance. It practices war crimes. It practices indefinite detention without trial. It practices illegal wars of aggression. It practices civilian massacres. That's what they do. That's their job. Lie, cheat, steal, kill. That's the government. That's the federal government in spades. It's way out of control. It's runaway. It's renegade. It's rogue. It's over. You know, if we don't get hold of it, or if we don't get our country back from it, then they're going to start rounding us up. In fact, we're the ones that are considered terrorists. You are considered a terrorist. Now, I'm certainly considered a terrorist. We know that the U.S. government is also guilty of all these false flag acts of terror, toxic assaults, and what have you. Barney and Betty look at that, they say, let's let that sink in a bit. Man, you know, I didn't realize it, but that's true. When you say they haven't repudiated any of that. If you really dug into it, and I did, okay, Barney or Betty looks at looks at some alternative, and she goes to No More Fake News or Infowars.com, and she says, whoa, they're actually doing these things. They're terrible. This is awful. They're killing children, and they're getting away with it, and nobody's stopping them. All right, so we got to do something, Barney. And okay, here's the list. This kind of came out. This is my list, and it's going to be in the book. And I'm going to explain this. All these are justifications, or excuse me, citations. These are I maintain they're objective and they're very constructive to demonstrate the existence of these threats. And I just kind of go through them. We have the money monopoly of the Fed. We have atmospheric spraying, covertly toxic skies, climate modification, and weather warfare, threatening the end of the human experience. We have staged massacres, the incident in Sandy Hook, whatever. I'll have to get that right. But it clearly was an artificial event. It did not happen. Nobody died. Okay? Now, it's hard to get your hands around, but that's what's going to come out. Of course, they're going to deny and omit and everything else, but the fact is, nobody died at Sandy Hook. Nobody. The same thing, if anybody died at the Boston Massacre, I'd be very surprised as well. Those were actors. Believe it or not. Blankets, those are ops. Okay? Now we have to go along with that, and I mean, it took millions and billions of dollars to create these ops. Well, what are they doing that for? Well, to further the agenda, to further the police state agenda, so they can control us and tell us what to do, take away our money, take away our lives, take away our opportunities, take away our friends, take away our pets, you know. So we have all these things. We have the torture crimes. We have the gulag medicine, you know, with genocidal AMA-approved Obamacare. We've got a holistic, the crushing the holistic and the naturopathic alternatives, the FDA kill list. We've got vaccines. We've got, and again, this is smart meters. We have radio wave pollution. This is called smog, electrical smog. Mandatory smart meters that amplify radio frequency waves and harm you physically. And it's been demonstrated and widely. But the point is, they're not voluntary. You know, you get them. And if you try to do anything about them, they make your life difficult. But we're a lot of people moving on that. We're moving on that. We're libertarians, and we're not going to let that stand. Okay? Then we have food fouling. We have the GMOs, the CAFOs. We've got your fluoridation. We've got all kinds of contaminated, unhealthful practices, and we've got a lot of these false flag operations and these staged incidents. Their intention is to disarm the citizens. It's to make you think that anybody who advocates the Second Amendment is some sort of like retrograde Neanderthal, and that has to be put away and taken care of. I mean, there's even in the DSM, which is diagnostic something manual, the DSM, the diagnostic condition manual. Anyway, the latest version that the psychiatrist Bible, they create these conditions for which there's no objective test, and they just assume that you've got them, and then they specify an SSRI drug. So we've got all that. We've got mind desolation. This is the K-12, operation where the government comes in and they create uniform mind control. This is the basic collective, the consensus collective. Of course, it wouldn't have happened in a free market in education, and that's another story. But there's absolutely no reason why the government belongs in education. And just the simple cursory view of the success of homeschooling will tell you why the state does no good at schools. Okay, it's just not. It's not its job. If it has any job, its sole job is to protect rights. And they don't think that way. As somebody once said, the state's job is not to protect and serve you, it's to kill and enslave you. And of course, steal from you. So we pause and let the previous two slides sink in. Okay, my list of, those are what I call the dirty dozen. They're also called the threats. These are the threats, the threat matrix. And then you add one thing to that, which would be, so for Barney and Betty, they want to get involved. This is the menu they're going to see, okay? And this is the menu that anybody is going to see, and we're going to ask the people in the context of the genial system. You're going to say, okay, well, what is it that bothers you the most? This is what we want you to, you focus on, and you say, okay, well, I really can't stand this idea of this grandmother and her ears bleeding because of smart meters. So I'm gonna get involved in smart meters, and I'm gonna roll that back, okay? And how dare they do that, or surveil me and so forth. So that's gonna be my threat to deal with. And so the whole point of is we're going to be in the threat removal business. That's what GNLs do. Now we come to the second part, which is they're going to do this to me now. On the that's fine. The GNL process is defined. Okay, Barney's and Betty's are becoming a board. Again, we're going to have materials as time goes on to make this more user-friendly so they can see, and we're going to say, well, what is it that bothers you? So they're going to be kind of things that you can do. The book itself is going to be very conversational. It's going to say, well, what is it that bothers you? Pick a threat, because we're going to have lots of people, and you don't want to be out of this. This is the social event of the season, and you want to be part of this because you're going to feel like this is where my community starts. This is real community. This isn't some kabuki play up on the stage where I got 3 minutes to say my piece and nobody can talk to me. Okay? This is real. This is life. Okay? And from all those in the trenches that the cause is based on the non-aggression principle, we are going to be helping these people out. These people need our help. These people need the help of Barneys and Bettys. And they need the help of people like us who see that they need the help of people like Barney and Betty. So we're all in this together. And if we don't put the bodies together here, then they're going to disperse us and divide and conquer, which is all their plan, of course, has been, and they've been damned effective. I have some other slides down the line that show the analogy that I look at. I think of it as like the invasion of the body snatchers, and I kind of think of these people as pod lizards, because they're putting the pods down, and that people are their mind, when they go asleep, when they fall asleep, they're taken over. They say, oh, everything is fine here. Of course, it doesn't get fine, and I think of the real book, it doesn't turn out. But and we all know collectivist systems die, and they die brutally. So we're not meant to be collective. We're not meant to be part of like a big giant collective. We're meant to be individuals and to cooperate with people and to love and to live. And this is what we're meant to do. All right. We are not meant to obey. We are not meant to follow orders. We are not meant to go to compulsory schools. All right, that's my bare bones demo in the book. This kind of comes now. I'm going to talk a little from the, and I guess I'm going to stop right here. But this is kind of from the part where I'm going to start talking more to libertarians. As libertarians, what I've talked about before is I'm pretty much talking to libertarians, and I'm talking to them in the context of what my system means to the Barneys and Bettys of the world. Here is going to be a little more detail, a little more conversation, a little more of the depth of what I've dealt with to come to this point. And so I'm going to just leave it because it's time for me to get a sandwich. So thank you.